Welcome back to our daily show. Here's CJ.
Reason why I should never make a change. Baby, if you want me, then all of this will go away.
Welcome back. 1027. Look who I found. The current treasurer of Madison County, Chris Slusser, and the candidate, one of them on the Republican side for Madison County Chairman. Sir, how are we doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, I'd be better if the sun comes out.
I know. I thought we were supposed to get this 50-degree weather this week, and then, I guess it's coming later this week.
You got to love meteorologists. The whole let's throw it out there and then change it and say, well, stay tuned at 10 and we'll give you a different report,
Exactly. Yep.
Well, you've been pretty busy the last couple of months. And,
yes, I have.
It's no surprise if you look at any publication that there's a lot of interest in this county chairman primary, because the notion that a lot of people have is it seems as if you look at the last voter rolls, that the Republican side is going to do pretty well in this general election.
Yes.
But the primary race is starting to heat up a bit. Fundraising's keeping going on, and now the primary date is when?
It's March 19th.
March. It's coming up quick.
It is coming up quick.
Is there a reason that, and I not to go off subject here, but is there a reason that the primary is always so early in the year? Is that just to get the general race kind of going?
I think
quicker?
so. They want to get it all out of the way before the conventions in the summer,
And as of now, how's everything going? Are you seeing a lot of support on your
Yes,
side?
I am. It's been a little overwhelming. I'll go back. I love being the county treasurer. I've been the county treasurer 7 years, and I really enjoy it. I love my staff. We have a great thing going. A lot of people, even my wife, have asked, like, why would you want to go give away this good thing you have going?
Right.
But I've had elected officials and business people and people in the community come to me and say, hey, we really need a change in the county chairman's office. And, and I used to be a supporter of Mr. Prenzler at one time earlier in his career, and I helped with some of his campaigns, but it's just really, he's kind of lost his way the last few years, and it's just continually gotten worse, and it's gotten a little bizarre at times, and we've been flooded with lawsuits because of some bad hiring decisions he's made, and just some really odd things. And then it got so bad that the county board in July of 2022, I guess, stripped him of all of his powers because it just got that bad. That's only happened one other time in the state of Illinois. It happened in Winnebago County a few years back. That was they used that as kind of the template to do this. It had held up in federal court.
Was the strip when they struck him of all of his power as chairman? Was that the decision that, hey, we got to do something here?
Yeah, it was just basically with the final straw. There were years of things leading up to this, and there was constant warnings. And the previous state's attorney, Mr. Gibbons, had said, actually the chairman in this county, the way our county's set up, because our chairman's elected at large by the people. Most counties, they elect the county board elects their chairman.
Right.
And that's the way it was here until 2004. There was a referendum on the ballot to make it at large. And so when you're at large, almost all of your powers are granted to you by the county board via ordinance. So then the board can giveth and the board can taketh away. And so they had, Mr. Gibbons had talked about this, but really never put forward a solid plan to do a roadmap. And then when State's Attorney Hayne came in, they had approached him, the board did, and Mr. Hayne, did the research. He's a pretty sharp attorney. Yeah. I mean, he's a brilliant guy, actually. And, and he's the board's attorney as well as Mr. Prenzler's attorney, but he laid it out like this is how it would happen, and it would have to be an ordinance change. And so they warned him, Mr. Prenzler, for months, like, please, we've got to rein some of this stuff in. This is getting chaotic and crazy, and there's constant turnover amongst department heads, like at alarming rates, actually. And they, he'd always put some controversial people on some of these boards and commissions that he gets to appoint to. That's actually the only authority he really retains right now. Mm-hmm. And that's because it's granted by state statute. So he can preside over the meeting. He can't place an agenda item on the agenda, believe it or not, but he can preside over the meeting, and he can recommend people for appointment to boards and commissions. And so there had been some people who were just chaotic on some of these boards and created some bad situations and lawsuits and complaints. And so the board is like, we're just not going to blanketly appoint, blindly rubber stamp these appointments. We're going to vet these people now. Right. So he put a group of people up. There were some of his supporters and campaign donors, and there were 5 people. And this was like the spring of 2022, and they voted him down unanimously. Mm-hmm. And he brought him up the next month. And they didn't even make a motion to put it on the floor. It just died due to lack of a motion. He put it up a third month, and they said, okay, like this is getting disrespectful and silly and embarrassing. They didn't make a motion. It died due to lack. I've never seen that happen before.
I don't think
but it's happened about 50 times under his watch now. And so he wasn't getting the message. So they told him, if this happens one more time, like, we're just going to strip you of your powers, like, because you can't be trusted to do. You're not trying to do the right thing. You're not even trying to work with anybody. You haven't for a long time. You're not acting in good faith. And so he did it again. And so they voted him down again. And then they called a special meeting. They stripped him of his powers.
Well, on top of that, one of the individuals that was being floated was one that's cost the county a lot of money in tax dollars in terms of frivolous lawsuits. Correct?
Which one were you referring
was
to?
Was that Doug that was being appointed?
No, I don't think he's tried to appoint Doug Hume to anything.
Okay, I thought he was a sanitary supervisor.
No, that was Randy Press.
okay.
Randy Presswood, which is another.
So my apologies.
No. That's Randy's another controversial figure that has aligned himself with the chairman. So then I had constantly been approached by the sheriff, the state's attorney, county board members, business people, community members, employees at the county. They're like, we've got to do something. We think you're the guy that can do it. You've got a good reputation, a good name ID in the county, and I was a county board member before, which I think is very important. Because you learn how to build those relationships. Mr. Prunzler is actually the first county chairman in our history of our county that never served on the county board. And so he's never really valued that relationship building, or made real attempts to build relationships. And I know all the county board members pretty well. And we have some newer ones now that I've not gotten super close with. But I mean, over the years, I've always had a great relationship. They come into my office, we chat, I give advice, whether it's solicited or not, right. and they know that I don't put pressure on anybody.
Well, and on top of that, I've seen, just because I like to kind of just observe that the supporters that are on the Prunzler side of things right now are saying, well, if that kind of hints at, an establishment at play, that they know each other, is that such a bad thing in your opinion?
No, because the role of the chairman is to get an agenda passed, and to get an agenda passed, you have to work with your county board. Yeah. And so one of the things that he had done that had really gotten himself in hot water with the board is, over the years, he doesn't call his board members before he puts something on the agenda. And what he did is he put some controversial things out there. The agenda's due on Friday for the Wednesday meeting the next week. And he would put a controversial item on the agenda without talking to a single board member. And then the media sees it and they call these board members, and the board members are embarrassed because they don't even know what they're talking about. And then he sends an email out to his, he has 3,000 people on an email list. He sends an email out and says, I want to pass this. Here are all the county board members. Here's their cell phone numbers. Call them and tell them to support this. And then those board members, they should have heard from him first, and they might have supported it, but instead all weekend they're with their families getting their phones blown up by angry people thinking that they don't even support and that sometimes they don't even know what they're talking about because they haven't even been approached with it yet.
Is it okay if I take a pause here in a second?
Absolutely.
Before I do, I have one question to ask you, and this is something that I saw a couple of weeks ago about immigration in Madison County. Is immigration an issue in Madison County? Because a year ago we had and I'm just going to say it, a buffoon come into the county board and say that it's migrants causing our trash problems and with no substance. And now it seems like we're kind of getting back to this being a little bit of an issue, not with trash, but in terms of just the greater national emergency. What's your thoughts?
It is not yet an issue in Madison County. It's something that we're paying attention to because, the buses are all going to Chicago and Denver and New York, the sanctuary cities, and they have not sent any buses here. And I don't think Greg Abbott is interested in sending any here. Now, the mayor of Chicago may decide to send a busload down here,
right,
to offload some folks, but it has not been an issue. We've not been approached with that. We've not heard of anything happening. There are plans being made to take a look at our ordinances to see what we can do, but we want to do it in a way that's constitutional and prudent and respectful, but also in making sure we're not opening ourselves up to some constitutional liability for violating anybody's rights, and we're not going to do it on someone's campaign schedule. It's going to be done in the right way.
Absolutely. So. And with that being said, we're going to take a quick pause here with our Madison County Treasurer and candidate, one of them for the Madison County Board Chairman spot on the Republican side, Chris Slusser, right here at 10:36 on this Tuesday morning. Your daily show comes back to you next.
Since 1993, Sparks Junk Removal is always adapting to the needs of our clients. That is why we now offer weekly trash pickup for selected areas. Plus, we offer driveway safe rubber tire dumpster rental. Give us a call today today at 618-781-1407 or visit us at sparksjunkremoval.net.
Macias Insurance Agency, providing quality products with extremely competitive prices. As an independent provider, we source multiple companies to offer the best rates possible, covering auto, home, business, and life insurance. Our goal is to provide quality service that meets and exceeds customer expectations. You can rest easy knowing the Macias team is working round the clock to ensure that both you and the most important parts of your life are covered. Our qualified professionals make the insurance process easy so you can live carefree and focus on what matters most. Visit MaciasInsuranceAgency.com today to find out what our team can do for you.
Not sure if you've noticed, but those advertised prices from the other dealers are just a bunch of blah, blah, blah. At Roberts Motors, the advertised price is the price you pay. And that, my friend, is great news for you. Don't fall for their so-called incentives that will leave you banging your head against the wall. Go with Roberts Motors. Prices you can trust and people you will like. That's the Roberts Motors way. And trust me, it's the way to go.
Has free checking become a thing of the past? Not if Liberty has anything to say about it. With 3 free personal checking options and even a free business checking account, free is alive and well at Liberty Bank, the local bank that gives you free checking choices and more cashing in your pocket. Bank locally, bank Liberty. For more information, visit www.bankliberty.com.
RiverBender Radio has built 3 great new stations just for you in the Riverbend. The Eagle, the Riverbend's classic rock station. The Bridge, hit music for the Riverbend. And The River, today's country, and all your favorites. Check them out today at RiverBenderRadio.com.
Welcome back to our daily show. Here's CJ.
Baby, I'm amazed at the way you help me sing my song. Right me when I'm wrong. Baby, I'm amazed at the way I really need you.
10:38, a little bit of Wings and a lot of Chris Slusser in studio. Sir, getting back to this, you've been really working the ground pretty hard with your team and getting out there and talking to constituents. No one can take that away from you. And it seems like there's a lot of different topics being floated of concerns for your potential voters. Can you name a few of the most common concerns that our constituents are having?
Sure. I think the 3 that I hear about the most are obviously property taxes, and I'm the county treasurer, so I hear that more than anyone. Because people come to pay their taxes, and I have lots of thoughts and ideas on that. And then there's this trash issue that's kind of in my area. I live in Wood River, and I drive to Edwardsville, in that area on 143 between 255 and Bender Hill Road, where the landfill is, has been a big source of controversy for anybody that drives through that area, especially if you live in that area. Right. And then the economic development and the opportunities and some of the missed opportunities we've had over the last several years.
Let me follow up on the economic development.
Sure.
Because there's folks that I talk to all the time that kind of get annoyed with the word or the phrase economic impact, because we hear hundreds of millions of dollars in economic impact, but still our streets have potholes in them.
Right.
Our infrastructure is still crumbling in areas of the region. What is your kind of thought on just those kind of buzzwords in terms of those projects? Because when I think of economic impact and really development, I think of businesses that are bringing job, industry growth. And your thoughts, what is that for you? Yeah,
it is. I mean, I always say we have to expand the tax base so we don't have to increase taxes on individuals. And, also, a lot of the infrastructure issues are just misplaced priorities, I think, and other things that have kind of gotten in the way. The pension issues in the state of Illinois have really crippled a lot of communities in the state because some of these municipalities, more than 50% of their tax levy is going towards their police and fire pensions, and we want to take care of our first responders. That's nothing against them at all, but it's just created a situation that it's very heavily reliant on property tax dollars, and then you have the way we fund our schools in the state of Illinois, which is different than most states. And that's why we have the second highest property taxes in the country, because we rely so heavily on real estate taxes to fund our schools. And the states like Indiana flipped that 15 years ago. Mitch Daniels, when he was a brilliant governor, in my opinion, did a big study, and they reformed. They had the 4th highest property taxes in the country. And like Illinois, he said, people aren't coming here for the weather, in the winter or the summer. that we don't have mountains. We don't have mountains or beaches.
That's true.
So we're losing retirees because they can't afford to live here. In Illinois, we're in the same situation amongst a lot of other problems created by poor policy at the state level, coming out of Springfield and Chicago. But what they did is they said, okay, schools can no longer levy for day-to-day operations, which are like pensions and salaries, and municipalities are no longer going to levy property taxes for police and fire pensions. So that immediately cut their property taxes in half overnight. Now, you can't just cut those things and not replace it. You still have to function, and you can't just close all your schools and lay off all your cops and firefighters. And so what they did was they did a study, and they figured that if they raised the state sales tax by 1%, they could cover all those costs, and it could be a revenue neutral shift. And then the third component is, and this is important, that it's all done at the same time. And Illinois would probably screw it up if we tried to do it with our legislature. But the third step is they put a cap on the amount your real estate tax bill. It can never be more than 1% of your home value or your assessed value.
Wow.
And with businesses, it was a little bit higher for commercial property, but it was a cap, because otherwise you shift all this and then everybody just raise the property taxes again. So it was a true protection for homeowners, and the schools are still great. If you go through Indiana, their roads are better than ours.
Yes,
I mean, it is just a much better looking state. They're still educating their kids. They still have police and fire protection, but their property tax bills are less than half of what ours are, like closer to a third of what we are in Illinois, in Indiana versus Illinois.
So if you win the primary, you win general, day one, what are we starting to look at to really maybe implement a statewide or proposal or something?
I've talked about this. I've been giving speeches about this in places in the business community around the county, and it is going to take the legislature to do it. Now, the reason that it never has happened and has never gained any traction in the past was Mike Madigan was Speaker of the House for 30 plus years, 35, 40 years. Longest serving speaker in U.S. history. He's under indictment. He's probably going to prison at some point finally. You know what his day job was?
No, I do not.
He was a property tax appeals lawyer. So he had zero incentive to have lower. What would happen is people would buy a business, buy a big building in Chicago. The property taxes are artificially high. They hire his firm to come in, get the taxes reduced, and then he gets a percentage of that reduction. He made millions of dollars a year doing this. And if you think that anybody ever got a job in the Cook County Assessor's office without coming through Mike Madigan, it was a very rigged game. And so he had this famous way of, if there was something he didn't want, a bill he didn't like, he would send it to the Rules Committee where it went to die. And so all these property tax reform bills, and some of our local legislators in the past would say, oh, I've introduced this property tax reform bill. It was going nowhere. It got sent to the Rules Committee. He's gone. The former president of the Senate was John Cullerton. He was a property tax appeals lawyer. Those guys are gone.
Okay.
There is absolutely no excuse for not studying this. The numbers I threw out that worked for Indiana. I don't know where it works for Illinois. The reason they use a sales tax is because he did a survey, Mitch Daniels' administration, and like 70+% of the people said they would prefer to pay higher sales tax than higher income tax or real estate tax, because you have a choice.
Yeah.
And like us, we live near the state border. We can cross the river if we don't like the prices here.
Well, we do constantly.
Right,
it seems like.
But it would put us all at a more competitive advantage. And when I've talked to this, I've given this talk 1,000 times to people at the front counter, at the treasurer's office, and they said, why aren't we doing that in Illinois? And I said, you have to ask your legislators,
Mm-hmm. Well, and on top of that, too, it seems like another concern that people have, Chris, is the fact that Madison County, I think, is a lot like Alton, where Alton has 7 beautiful wards, 7 beautiful districts, but they almost feel like they're on their own island. Where, Alton as a town is kind of on an island to an Edwardsville and a Roxana. And
Yes.
it's just the way it seems. So as county chairman, what would you do to kind of bring together those towns and have a greater goal for the county?
That is a great question. So one of the things that I've worked on as far as economic development is a regional plan.
Yeah.
Because we have these cities kind of out incentivizing each other to try to steal business. And these companies just play these communities off one another.
That's what they do.
Yes, absolutely. And we have the Route 3 corridor is going to be one of my biggest focuses. That's from basically Alton down to Venice. And there's all the abandoned industrial sites.
Yes.
and some of them are hazardous and environmental issues. So I've worked with some commercial real estate folks who specialize in brownfield properties and the Leadership Council of Southwestern Illinois. I also have a great relationship with almost every mayor in this county. And when I've talked about this, I know my wife, when I was speaking out in Highland at an event in August, she said, on the way out there, she says, how are you going to convince people in Highland to care about the Route 3 corridor?
Right.
And I said, just wait until I give my speech. And so what I said was, I live in Wood River. I'm right on the border of Roxana and Wood River. My next door neighbor is in Roxana, and I'm in Wood River. So I'm close to the refinery. And that refinery, I mean, they pay $27 million in property taxes every year. You know, they write one check at the beginning of the tax cycle, and that is a massive economic engine. You know, the economic impact, as you said earlier, to the region is huge. Well, guess what? Those jobs all pay like $100,000 a year plus, and these kids are coming 19, 20 years old. They do a 2-year program at LC, and then they come in and they're making $100,000 plus. But guess what? None of them live in Roxana.
Right.
None of them live in Wood River. You know, very few. I mean, there may be a few, but I mean, there's 1,000 plus employees there. They live in Highland. They live in Edwardsville, Glen Carbon, Godfrey, Hamel, St. Jacob. They build houses there. They send their kids to school there. They pay property taxes. They spend their money there. They go out to eat there. And those mayors all understand. They're like, yes, absolutely. You know, that what is good for this area is good for the whole county. And they don't necessarily want manufacturing in Highland, or they have some, but they don't really want a lot more. And they're not looking for it in St. Jacob, you know. But they like having nice communities where people want to raise their families. And so one of the things that I do is, you know, I worked in commercial real estate for a large developer here in the county for 6 years. It was a fantastic job. I loved it. It was just a great job. And what I developed a lot of relationships with developers. And so a lot of them have come to the table. The chairman that we have now is focused on more activism issues, you know, which is fine, but you still have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. And these developers have just been frustrated when they come to the table. He has no interest in having these conversations. And part of it is because economic development there's no immediate gratification there. I mean, sometimes these things could take years, but you have to have the vision to make these things happen and bring them together. And we have to, the county chairman really should be an ambassador for this county. We've had a crime spree going on across the river for like 6 or 7 years now. They're not prosecuting any crimes. Tom Haynes' office, the state's attorney's office in Madison County, which has a lower population than the city of St. Louis, prosecuted almost 3 times as many felonies last year than the city of St. Louis.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, you had Kim Gardner in office,
exactly.
and that's exactly what happened. I mean, when, and you know, Wesley Bow's doing the best he can, but when you're 3,000 backlogged, you aren't. And you're right. When it comes to those, and when I was talking to America's Central Port, which I don't know if it's in the county line, it's right on that.
Yep, it is.
I think of just one of the most lucrative pieces of land there. I mean, with innovation in terms of bringing in all these sectors of industry, and now with it changing to AI and more drone development, I think there's some really good opportunities there.
There is, and we should, and the chairman should be the ambassador to recruit these companies. When I talk to them, they have no idea some of the changes that have happened over here. You know, they're like, wow, like you have a conservative Republican leadership now, and we just thought it was still kind of the old school Democratic machine over there, and you know, you got a kind of a pay to play thing, and like, no, it's not that way anymore, and we're doing, these are the things we're doing, and we have good schools, and we have safe communities, and we have a prosecutor who prosecutes crimes, and they have this cross river crimes task force that the state's attorney and the sheriff created that is hammering. I mean, they're sending the message: you come to Madison County to commit crimes from St. Louis or wherever, like you're going to prison. You know, there's not going to be any of this, we're going to let you out and not prosecute you. So,
well, and on top of that too, getting to the crime issue, which is, it's becoming it's a regional issue, a national issue if you look at statewide and you look nationally with the basically mob violence that happened in California, where there's looting stores whenever. When you're running as county chairman, I'm sure when you talk to voters, national issues come up a lot, and they think that maybe the chairman has some pull in that. I mean, we walk down the grocery store aisle, cereal's $8. People are having a hard time affording groceries, their bills. And there's not much a county chairman can really do to call schnooks and say lower the cost of milk. But in terms of maybe billing issues, in terms of getting some utilities under control, does the chairman have any authority or any wiggle room?
We have some, but I think it's really just working with our legislators, you know, and our current chairman. I'm not here to bash him. I'm just trying to draw a contrast. If you're not a right-wing conservative, he does not really want to deal with you. And I am extremely conservative. He and I probably agree on like 99% of the issues when it comes down to it. It's just our delivery and how we handle and do business. Well, I understand. You know what? In Illinois, we have a super majority Democrats in the House, the Senate. They'll control every statewide office, including the governor's mansion. If I only want to deal with Republicans, I will get absolutely nothing done.
Exactly.
And so even though I may not like some of these, the policies of some of these Democratic legislators, and it might be turn my stomach to sit in a room with them sometimes and listen to some of the things they come up with, I understand for our region to benefit, I have to convince some of these folks to get some things done that are going to benefit our region. Because ultimately, when we bring better jobs in here, I mean, I'm working on something with the city of Granite City right now. I brought a developer. It's a developer who's doing a lot of stuff in Wood River. He's also doing stuff in Highland in the town square. But he's working on a big manufacturing project that, as long as Illinois doesn't screw this thing up, which may very well happen because we're competing against Missouri on this, but they want to bring in manufacturing that'll be ammunition, it'll be gunpowder and primer that'll be manufactured there. It's not in conjunction with Olin or Winchester. It's totally separate. It's a private equity firm that saw a global shortage of primer as a real issue and an opportunity. And so, he called me and he says, Wood River doesn't have the land available for this, to put this together, because unfortunately the old BP refinery is pretty much brownfield and you can't build on it. And so he says, who else should I talk to? Well, I know the mayor of Granite City. Like, he served on the county board. He's a retired cop, we're good friends. And so I called him and he says, dude, we would love to have you down. Bring them down here. We got lots of land. We have to live and die by this steel mill all the time. And this was before the mill announced.
Right.
And so they're in talks. This would bring 500 to 600 manufacturing jobs to Granite City, which is good for the whole region. And that's just the start. I mean, we have a lot of things planned. So
on top of that too, a common concern just here locally is it seems like developers a lot of the times, have tens of millions of dollars, and while there's nothing wrong with giving that incentive to come here, it seems like sometimes that developer gets a lion's share of maybe some of any type of funds remaining for small business owners to update their establishments, to utilize that for, just getting by through the day-to-day with also innovating their own business.
I agree 100%.
How are we able, what can we do at the county level to ensure maybe that doesn't happen and those small business owners aren't being looked over for a major developer that it just takes the handout?
So I'll tell you, the developer I used to work for was RLP Development Company, who is owned by RP Lumber. Yeah. And Mr. Plummer is an extremely successful guy. And what his philosophy is we did business in like dozens and dozens of communities. And I managed all his commercial real estate. And if we were going to acquire a building that was where we were going to put a new RP Lumber. So we would go to, Jason Plummer, who's state senator, I worked directly with him. He's vice president of RP Lumber. We would go to visit some of these cities, and it was incredible. Like, we would walk in the door. The Plummer family has never participated in a TIF district. Even though they might be located, they might draw TIF districts in where their business are, they have never participated. They just don't believe in that. That's philosophically, they don't want any, they consider that corporate welfare. Yeah. They're, if someone else wants to take advantage of it, that's their prerogative. It's just not what they want to do principally, And so these cities, we would sit in there and they would have all these city officials and they're trying to throw incentives at us. And Jason, and I would just sit there quiet because I knew, and Jason would say, you know what, we're not looking for incentives. He said, we are looking to just come in the community and do business. Cut the red tape. Don't get in our way when we're trying to get things with zoning regulations. Right. We'll follow the rules, but don't jam us up. Let us get open and do business in your community. And there's one community we're going to renovate an old Walmart. It was an old Walmart where homeless people were living in it. So, but we renovated it. It's a beautiful RP Lumber now. We built a hotel out on part of the property because it was a large piece of property we bought. And but they kept offering incentives over and over and over again. And then he just said, look, we don't want to come into town and put our competition that's maybe been here for 40 years out of business because the city chose us as the winner. They got to pick winners and losers. Mm-hmm. If we put them out of business, it's because we just did business so much better than they did and provided better service. But we don't want the government being involved in that decision. And they were just stunned. They were just not used to that. And I'm like, you know what? When you come to the table, before even finding out, a part of negotiating is finding out what the other person's willing to offer. But if you're putting all your cards on the table before they've even asked for anything. Like, you just put yourself in a position of, of weakness and disadvantage, and you're going to get, and you can't blame a company for coming in and taking advantage of that. But you have to get out and sell what we have to offer and make it advantageous for them, make them to want to come here, show them why it's good to be here, and then find out what they're looking for before you throw all your incentives out. And there's a balance probably from where most businesses can't necessarily or don't want to operate exactly the way RP Lumber does.
True.
They don't have those principles, and maybe they have shareholders to answer to. But there's also a difference. There's a happy medium in between just giving away the farm and not giving anything,
100%.
And being respectful to your current businesses.
Well, and that's the thing, and I'm not, here to criticize anybody. It just seems like that is something that, we forget about, those mom and pops that have been the ones that donate to the park and rec programs and buy the jerseys and really do the things that support the day-to-day morale of a community, and we're forgetting about them.
Absolutely.
And as we have I told you 10 minutes, and here we are 30 minutes later. I'm sorry about that.
That's
Chris.
fine.
Put them to the Firestone today.
That's right.
As you're working, you have about a month till primary really is upon us, because the month
6
of
weeks.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's your next 6 weeks look like? I mean, you're going to be boots on the ground plus doing your still day job as the county treasurer. How does that balance look?
It's tough on the marriage and the family. It always is at this time. But I have a very supportive wife and kids, and my daughters are 7 and 8, so they're a lot of fun right now. And when they're not back talking, but no, they want me to win, and they're very supportive. But it is a difficult schedule. I also own a restaurant, in Edwardsville, and so it's I have that obligation. I have family. I have stuff at my church where I'm pretty involved in, and so I'm kind of torn in a lot of different directions. It's difficult, but I usually leave nothing on the table in these elections. I know I've run elections before. I've won 4 out of the 5 elections I've run in. The one I lost, I was young and foolish back then, But no, I mean, it's constantly campaigning, getting the message out. I've done a great job raising money because I got all this support before I decided to run. I didn't just jump into this haphazardly. I built all the support ahead of time, made sure the financial commitments were going to be there to do what we needed to do, and then I announced. I did. A lot of candidates do it backwards, and then they're like, which is what I did 12 years ago, and then all of a sudden the support's not all there, and I'm like, man, I should have figured this out before I got in.
Counting the chickens before you hatched.
I was in my early 30s and still new, but and like this. One of the things we didn't touch on, I don't know how much time we have, but the trash issue thing.
Oh, yeah. I actually do have a specific question on that, because I know that there is the option of a litter mitigation unit in a contract that is going to be available. Has that been decided upon on who's going to be that? I
don't know about that specifically, because I haven't been directly involved in that. I'm still the treasurer, so I try to stay in my lane as much as I can. But no, I mean, I think we have to, this has gone on for way too long. And people have complained. I've complained a lot. Not a lot's gotten done. I've been in constant talks with the state's attorney. They're looking at whatever options we can use. Ultimately, we want the businesses just be in compliance and just be respectful of the community and not unload, have trash spilling out all over the place, because it's dirty. It's an environmental issue, and it's just not a good look for the community.
No.
Yeah.
Well, and on top of that too, there's time, and I've said this before. There's a lot of people that like to do what I do and go into a microphone, or maybe just on their social media, because everyone's got a voice now, and they whine, about issues. But when you have folks like a Rusty Wheat that are out there every day picking trash up and
puts his money where his mouth is,
And do you think that's a huge part of the formula for success in a county? Is not just talking about it, but actually having those spearheaders that go work with county and do it.
And Rusty, Rusty can be a little bombastic sometimes.
A little bit,
But you know what though? I mean, he was frustrated, and rightfully so. But he dialed it back a little bit and realized, I got to engage these folks to make them. Some of them were not aware of how bad the problem was, and when he got people out there to look at it and see how bad it was a different story. But I mean, I never do things as like a political opportunist kind of thing, and my opponent's a little different on that, and he got people riled up on it. But then at the same time, the whole time I was thinking, why are we not holding the trash haulers accountable? We can go pick up trash all day long, but if they're dumping it constantly, then like we're just spinning our wheels here. But then it was brought to my attention that the chairman received a $1,000 campaign donation right about the same time from the trash hauler, the primary abuser of this offender, and so we're like, okay, well, is this why you're being quiet? And I know Rusty got onto him and he returned the money, but it's like, these conflicts of interest. I mean, you just create when you take money from people in these situations, you're just creating conflicts that shouldn't exist.
Absolutely. And Treasurer Slusser, I really appreciate your time today. We actually are over the broadcast schedule, but
give a politician a microphone. This is what you get.
And that's why I like it, because I think in talk radio has killed so many things, because you always have to be divisive. But just like you're saying, you might have differences, but you really aren't bashing your opponent. You're just going about the discrepancies. And while I have you for this time, and you're always welcome back, what's your final message as you're out, in primary season for the voters when they have that opportunity in March?
Well, it's very important to vote in the primaries.
Yeah.
People tell me all the time, well, I don't vote in the primaries. And then they complain about who their options are in November. And I said, if you get involved in the primary, then you get to be part of the process. So March 19th is a primary. Early voting starting soon. Vote by mail. There's no excuse to not vote and participate. And on the Democratic side, there's nothing to vote for this time,
right?
Because Biden is essentially unopposed, and they're really not. If they're running any candidate, they're not running any candidates for countywide office. So you're gonna have a blank ballot. So if you're considering, if you want to make a choice in the race for chairman, the Republican primary is the place to do it.
I have a question on the primary and the open primary kind of philosophy.
Sure.
Do you think it's appropriate to have moderates and maybe leaning Democrats vote in a Republican primary?
I mean, I think it's kind of I don't like it in some cases because I feel like some people could come over and tip the scales, which has been done in the governor's races in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I also consider it a free speech type thing.
True.
And maybe they want to vote for, I know a lot of people voted Republicans voted in Democrat in 2014 because the sheriff's primary, it was a Democratic primary. But they weren't Democrats, but they wanted to cast a vote for it because Republicans didn't have a candidate back then.
Correct.
That
makes sense.
So, yep.
Well, County Treasurer Chris Slusser on the show today, and I told him, Chris, I'll give you 10 minutes, and then 38 minutes later, here we are.
Hey,
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me in.
Well, you're welcome back anytime. Seriously.
All right, thank you.
I will see all of you tomorrow on a Wednesday morning with a full show. We got blog talk and so much more. So on that note, have a great day. Go out with your family, enjoy the afternoon, but most importantly, just try your best to stay out of jail.
He said he would.